Hi, class. Welcome to Unit 7 of Learning Across the Lifespan, and congratulations on completing Unit 6. You are doing so well in the course. Hang in there just a couple more weeks. You're doing great. You can do this. So let's talk about the last things that we have to do to wrap up the course in the next couple of weeks. Of course, always take a look at the announcements. And let's take a look down at Unit 7. So in Unit 7, we are talking about revising, editing, and proofreading your work. So those actually are all three different things. So revising is really taking a look at the big picture of your writing. You're going to rewrite it, build on what's already been done in order to make it stronger. When you talk about editing, you're looking at like sentence level. Does this sentence make sense? Is this the right structure? Should I revise it? And then when you're talking about proofreading, that's when you're talking about looking at grammar, punctuation, spelling, all of those really nitpicky things that are really important though in writing a really solid paper. So it's very important that you don't skip this step. You will want to use my feedback from the draft paper as a starting point for revising and editing your paper, but you need to take it a step further than that and do some additional work in addition to what I have recommended. Now, I will say at a minimum, I expect you to use my feedback. If I don't see that you've used my feedback and incorporated it into your paper, at least the most of it, I will be a little frustrated with that because I spend a lot of time on your papers providing feedback. I think it can really help you create a stronger paper. So I really want to see you include that feedback to create a stronger paper. And that way, that will really help you learn from the mistakes that you made in the draft as well. So when you are drafting, or excuse me, when you're revising your paper, some of the things you might want to consider are, have I included all of the main points I meant to cover? Should I add or delete ideas to strengthen my paper? Have I adequately supported my thesis statement? Do I have enough details, enough statistics, facts, examples, stories? Are there any points that I've included that now that I've written the paper seem irrelevant? Can I delete them? Is the tone and language appropriate for my paper? One of the things I've noticed in the drafts is there's a lot of first person I. In academic writing, we don't use first person. You don't want to write from your own perspective. I agree with this. I don't agree with that. You want to delete all of those. The tone you want to use should be professional and academic. You don't want to use casual, informal tone like, now let's talk about XYZ. You want to avoid that kind of language. You want to be consistent in your writing, and you just want to make sure that the order of the paper makes sense. So that is really going to be your revising strategy. Then you're going to talk about editing, and that's, like I said, that's when you're looking at your sentence level, and then you're going to proofread for the tiny little nitpicky things. So here are some great references that will help you in revising and proofreading and editing your work this week. So you're going to complete your final paper. It is due on Sunday of this week, so you have a few more days here to get that in. Really spend a lot of time with it and make sure you're doing a really great job. A couple of things I also noticed in the drafts, some of them aren't long enough. Your paper needs to be 3 to 5 pages, not including title page or references. Those are extra pages. You want to make sure you have a really clear thesis in your introduction and make sure you fully develop your thesis. An introduction is more than just the thesis statement, so you need to introduce the topic in your introduction. I do also strongly encourage you in the introduction to include an attention getter. So you remember you have to paraphrase your sources, so don't use direct quotes. I saw a lot of direct quotes in the drafts, which I marked. You need to change those to paraphrases. And you need to make sure that at least 2 of your sources are from the Guttman Online Library, and 1 of them is from the internet. I saw a lot of internet sources, so you need to make sure you go back and do some research in the library to find some good scholarly sources to support your points. Make sure you use in-text citations. Make sure those are in APA formatting. Make sure you're developing a really strong conclusion that should wrap up the paper, reiterate your thesis, and leave the reader with a final thought or call to action. Make sure your reference page is also in APA formatting as well. So this week we have a discussion on revising, editing, and proofreading. That will get you in the mindset of doing those for your paper. And so just a heads up, the course will end next Saturday night in week 8. And you will really have a pretty light workload in Unit 8. You'll only have to do the final discussion for that. So really pour on this steam this last week and do a great job revising your paper. And I hope you have a great week.